What is up, everybody? This is Chad from NFT Pirates. I got the one and only Will Goes Meta here with me today. Big fan of this guy. He does even more interviews than me. He's super knowledgeable. I thought I did a good job of breaking down first appearance on the blockchain, but he does it 10 times better. So what's up, my man? So thankful that you came on to the channel today.
Thank you, Chad, for having me. I am super honored to be here. I have been watching your channel for a long time and have made many right decisions from learning from your perspective and stuff on thoughts and the FAs and stuff. Uh, yeah, super happy to be here learning from you and sharing what I know about um, NFTs and VeVe from speaking with my guests.
Amazing. Dude, super thrilled to have you here. And one thing I want to say that I love about what you do is I always see you in the Discord. Like you're not just like from a distance, you're actually like connecting and talking with people all the time. And like a lot of these people are whales as well, but you're always like in lingo with them. So I always go see that, like VV Army chat or even like the regular VV chat. I see you there. So is that kind of how you learn a lot of the things that you do?
Okay, can I tell you a long but good story?
Please, yeah.
Okay. So I started with VeVe back in February 27th, 2021. So last year I started, but I did not have any knowledge on how to collect. I didn't have any friend to talk to about VeVe. So I made many mistakes and I realized that in order to be good at VeVe, I needed to learn. So I and it's like some of these mistakes were pretty dumb too. Like back then, there was like the 007 poster. If you remember,
Mhm.
one of the earliest poster, there was one that has a bullet hole in it. It was just a white circle and
All
there's a
right.
bullet hole. Yeah, and some guy on Twitter speculated that the brand that is the owner of the 007 IP would one day animate it and turn it into the OG trailer of 007. Uh, that was so dumb. So I went out and I bought a few of them and way overpaid for them. So I
Yeah.
made those kind of mistakes that were very stupid, and I realized that I didn't know anything. So I started learning. So I watched different people's channels. I watched your channel quite a bit too, and I decided that okay, I have to learn. So where do I start? The best way to learn it is to actually do it. I don't have a lot of capital to to buy and sell all day or to know what to invest. So what I decided to do is like if I don't have the capital, if I don't have the opportunity to gain that experience, then I'm gonna learn it from other folks who have way more experience and have way more money invested in the app than I do. Because I was looking for mentors basically. So I watched your channel and I loved it. And on the second interview that you had with Silicon Secure, maybe the
Mhm.
first one or second one, I still remember it. He mentioned that he was a part of the VV Army.
Mhm.
So at that time, the concept of joining Discord groups was kind of like out of my comfort zone because I realized so many of those groups were just like pump and dump groups.
Mhm.
But then knowing that you and Silicon were both in it and are still both in it, that gave me a lot of confidence to reach out to Silicon. And I asked him, hey, like, what is this group that you guys were talking about? And he shared a link with me, and so I joined a group, and I was super lucky to join and learn from everybody. And
Mhm.
that's when I decided that, hey, if I want to get more knowledge, more experience, I need to have one on one conversation with these guys. So I started approaching people from that Discord group. I started with Brown Mamba 824. His name is Eddie. Okay, I'm just gonna call
Yeah,
him
he's
Eddie.
good. Yeah.
So I started with him, and then Dylan's collection was around quite a bit too. So I reached out to him, and I just everything just like snowball. So I started reaching out to more people. Danny Boy Layak,
Yeah.
Grub a B,
Sick guy.
Mr. V. Yeah. So That's how my journey kind of started, with a lot of mistakes, and that's how my YouTube content journey started, with learning from those mistakes, and reaching out to people to get the experience to make better decisions.
Wow. It's a cool story, man. Like, especially hearing that like now you're closely affiliated with a lot of these guys. And even for me, that's how I learned a lot as well. Is like the more people I talk to, the more whales, the more, crypto savvy people, the more you just pick up on what to do and, what not to do. And like I think that's where I kind of learned about like the stacking strategy as well.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest things, I think the people that made the most money, like millions of dollars, at least in gems, I don't know if they sold at the right time, but like you said, they were collecting the popular stuff that had higher edition counts that was super cheap. And then once we had that mass adoption back from like November to January, that's when all of a sudden those things that were like a 50 to $100 entry were like a few $1,000s. And so those guys knew what they were doing, right? And it's like crazy because I think Silicon has like a 10 to 20-year collecting strategy just for coins. So he just like
Wow.
applied all those same, mechanisms to VeVe. But what I wanted to say though is I recently watched one of your YouTube videos on the first appearances, and I was blown away by how you like articulated the significance of them on the blockchain. And I was hoping to just kind of dive in more into your like perspective on that, and kind of if you can almost like re-highlight what you said in that video, because I think to the audience it was really remarkable what you said.
Yeah, and this is all the credits to you, because I watched your video when I bought my first tot last in August last year in 2021, and that was, I bought my tot for like 450, and
Wow.
that was one of my best decisions ever. So that's when I learned about FAs from you. So, thank you for that. I'm super grateful for that. And the reason
Perfect.
why, after a year and a half being with VeVe, the reason why I'm so bullish on FAs is because there are not that many good FAs out there that are backed by, you know, 50, 80 years of history, popularity, and fan base. If you think about Spider-Man that just had a 60-year anniversary, or Batman or Superman, they both have over 80 years of history. Mickey Mouse came out in 1928, almost 100 years of history right there. So these brands, these IP creators spend a lot of time, like almost a century, building that credibility to these characters, and that there are not that many of them left. So before we even talk about first appearance, let's just talk about appearance, right? So these are very uh, historically significant characters that we are very fortunate to have. And on regarding first appearance, I would say that the majority of us don't really care too much about the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. If you were to ask people like, "Hey, what is the second Batman on VV?
Mm,
Is that the Rizzo, or is that the Joe Mad Batman, or what is the second Harley Quinn on the app?
mm,
That's like, or what is the runner up of the last World Cup or Super Bowl, or those kind of questions. And then you start realizing that people only care about the first. We don't have that many first left. I think in terms of superhero, we might be able to get like Thor. No, not Thor. Wolverine,
right.
and the Hulk, as in collectibles. And
Right.
for us to wait until the next generation of superhero FAs, it's gonna take decades, because nowadays the only good young superhero we have is Miles Morales, and he just came on the app maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, right?
Mm,
The rest of the the young superheroes are the young Avengers, and the majority of us cannot even name two of them. I cannot name any of them. So, and over time, what I've realized from talking to these whales who have a lot of money, have made so many mistakes and so many great decisions as well, is that they have shifted their strategy from diversifying to sets, so that they have shifted from diversifying to stacking, and
mm,
they carry the same thesis. They only want to focus on first appearances because they are historically significant. There are not that many of them, and these FAs, again are backed by 80 years of that foundation. So we have all of that combination in these collectibles, which is extremely rare. So
Wow.
that's why I really focus on FAs.
Holy shit. You said that so well. You're telling me that I like that you learned that from me. I don't know, man. That sounded really good. And I just wanted to kind of chime in and kind of echo what you were saying. And I think you bring up some brilliant points. And the one thing that was always fascinating to me was like unlike physical merchandise, where you can go to a toy store or you can go to a collectible shop and you don't really know if it was the first appearance or whatever, like unless somebody told you it was and there was like maybe a certificate of authenticity. With these digital things, you can find it right on the blockchain right away. Like you could be like, oh, that is the first token from VeVe. That was the first appearance. Like they will have that ingrained in the metadata at some point. And to me, like there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, even tens of thousands of all these things coming after Thor to replicate Thor, coming after Darth Vader to
Mhm.
replicate Darth Vader. And it's like, how can you distill what's actually the most significant within those huge subsets of other Darth Vaders or whatever, right? And it's because it's the first appearance. Like the only thing that can really beat that is if you have exceptionally scarce items or
Mhm.
insanely great utility going forward. But like it's such a safe bet in my opinion. And it's like think about it as well. I'm like we're going digital now. So we're going into that revolution. And what's after digital? Like I don't really think there's like
Yeah.
something else. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's pretty much it. Once you're digital, you're digital. Maybe like in 100 years from now, some other new technology emerges. But until then, this is huge, right? So I just love that the way that you broke that down. And I agree with you that these whales, they really know what they're doing. And like I said, if I only shifted my strategy to not getting scarce things previously, like I would have easily had millions of dollars in the bank.
Yeah. I remember you had 18 tots, right? And you sold some for your weddings or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I I I do agree with that. We right now we only have two lives. Our physical life, which is like me meeting you at the next offline event, or our digital life, which is us talking right now, right? And
Mm.
if you were to think about the first ever physical Batman uh, collectible that was ever produced, you can't even comprehend that idea anymore, right? It probably came out in 1939 when
Mm.
Batman first came out in the comics, or whatever year that was. So that kind of toy doesn't exist anymore. And how do you even validate that that particular piece of collectible was the first ever Batman that came out of the factory? Like you can't, it's impossible. In 1939 until today, actually, I have my notes. What year was it? Well, let's just say 1939 to today. It's almost 100 years, so
Right.
it probably doesn't exist anymore. But when we think about our second life, which is our digital life, we have it in our collection. Yeah, right. So if you really think deep about it, it's a pretty big deal.
It really is.
Yeah.
I agree with you, right? It's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like right now, even, a lot of these people are complaining. They're saying BB is dead and a lot of it's a bear market. And then I'm like also seeing the opposite side where I see all these people that just came back from like New York Comic Con and you see Marvel, $22 billion industry, and VV is the main thing that they're essentially promoting. And you're like, okay, like this makes sense, right? Like everything is going that way. So I don't know, man. I'm very convicted like yourself. I think there's still a few other things, like for instance, the interoperability and not your own keys and maybe a few other little things like that are still kind of playing on people's minds. But I'm extremely bullish, so I hear you.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I guess like kind of like changing from that. Did you see all of Dan Crother's stuff on the VV verse? Like he just posted something saying, "VV fam, what are you most excited to see slash have in the VV verse?" Did you see that tweet?
Yes, yeah, I saw that. And he was asking like stuff like Unity or Unreal Engine, and let just people like just have it.
Yeah, and there was one person says, "Are we moving and driving around in a first or third person view?" And he's like, "You will have the option for both first and third person." So this is a pretty big deal. Like this is no joke. Like if you're doing both first and third person, like I was like, "Hey, this is pretty serious now," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I said to him was, I was like, I'd love to be able to walk around in our collectibles. Like, I'd love for like, to use a secret rare Spider-Man or a Miles Morales or a Darth Vader or a Black Panther secret rare and like walk around in that skin. And there was a lot of likes, but there was no point that he said. You just left that comment. So I'm presuming that's a no,
That
but I
was
could.
actually my first ever VV video. I had the same
Mm,
idea. Like it would be amazing to, if I own, let's just say my tot is, I have two tots. One is 2858. It would be awesome if I can just use my tot and dress up as him, walk around. That would be so much fun. But I think I mentioned the idea and somebody had a really good comment about it, which is the fact that these brands, we want some, um, they don't want their reputation to be damaged. Like I
mm,
can be Todd Batman walking around in the metaverse or Viviverse, right? And I can curse at everybody, or I can start hitting you in the
yeah.
metaverse, and I can start saying like dumb shit, that will
Hmm.
offend many people. And somebody film a video of me doing that. The rest of the rest of the people on YouTube who watch that video, they don't think that, oh, it is Will who's saying it. In their perspective, it is Superman, oh sorry, a Batman saying racist things, for example, which will be a
Hmm.
very negative um, thing for DC, because again they spent 80 years, over 80 years now for Batman building that reputation, and now they just let one random guy just ruin it. And I thought it was a very valid point.
Wow. My God, I don't even think I've ever thought about that, to be honest with you. That is
Yeah.
such a good perspective. And I guess that's the issue with these IPs, right? That we're having now. And I think that's potentially why a lot of people are still skeptical because they're so watched out for and they're kept so close to the company's chest that like you can't really do too much with it.
Hmm.
And I'm just thinking like that's a good point. Like if you're using Todd and you're talking as Todd, or if you're using an avatar, then I could see that being a liability for the company, which is kind of concerning because now I'm thinking like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that we're actually just going to be ourselves in the VV verse? Maybe you can drive your DeLorean around, but if you want to see
Hmm.
your Todd Batman, I've got to take you to my house. Do you know what I mean? Or my part of the land or whatever.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah. So the reason why I thought that was a really good comment on that particular idea is because, yeah, again, these brands spend almost a century safeguarding these characters. Like the only
mhm,
time you can hear the real Batman talk is when you see Batman in comics or movies, right? And when the Batman says something, it is very carefully crafted by these like 50 writers behind the Batman movies.
mhm.
So I don't think, maybe these brands will give VeVe some freedom to do certain things, but I think they will pay very close attention to what people do with their IPs.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, do you think like maybe we could just like have limited functionality? For instance, like you could be walking in a Todd Batman skin, but you won't be able to talk or you won't be able to hit anybody. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's like something that they can do where like there's still some kind of access to using it in different formats, but not necessarily like fully free like you might have with like a decon item or another NFT, right?
Yeah. So I have,
Yeah.
when I saw Dan mentioning the Viviverse, I actually had this idea that will probably make me lose some subscribers if I say it, but I'm going to say it. If you were to ask me what I think about the Viviverse 5 6 months ago, I would have been very excited about it. Um, but now they have not been able to get a good social feed uh, developed within the VeVe app, right? They've been promising comics in a showroom for a long time.
Yeah.
They've been promising in-app improvements for a long time, and none of that has happened yet. Like if I want to talk to people, or if I want to find an old post that I would love to visit again within the VeVe app so that I can continue that conversation, I can't really do that, right? If I want to search for a collectible on the web app or in the mobile app, it's not the best experience ever, and it takes quite a bit of time.
Mm,
So I set my expectation low for VeVeverse, just because the way I see things happening right now within the mobile app and web app, I feel like they have to show that they are able to tackle these smaller things before getting to the huge things, which is
right.
the VeVeverse. So I guess Dan makes a great point to ask for feedbacks from the community, but I think we are still pretty early, and we may be able to see like a
Mm.
V1 version of VeVeverse from now until the end of the year. But I think it's better to set a low expectation and then be surprised about it, rather than have a super high expectation and be disappointed. That's just the way I think about it.
I think that's very calculated and intelligent. Like I would agree with you on that as well. Like when I think about the VV verse right now, I think maybe like 5 years from now I get excited, as
Mm-hmm.
to what that could be. But I think within the next year, I see it as a very like low level kind of way to improve our social dynamic. And I think like somebody said this really well. I think it's actually Trevor, one of the old devs that used to be working for VV. He said that like even though VV is so important, the majority of the communication happens on Twitter. Like people are on Twitter Spaces, they're connecting on Twitter, they're chatting. So, and that's not VV. Like that's a social media platform. And for VV to be very successful, that kind of communication has to then be transitioned over to the VV verse. So if they could even manage that, where that's communication would be preferred within their own scope, then I think that would be like a successful first step. But I think the issue that we're having is like people are literally thinking they're going to be flying around in DeLoreans and visiting their friend's house on their land and like going into some unique mansion and like seeing things in lighter technology and AR all over their house. And they're going to like I think it's like that to me is just so far out.
Yeah, and in my most recent interview with Mr. V,
Yeah.
he's a huge specimen collector. He has over 36 collectibles with mint 1, 2, 3, 4. So this
Wow.
guy is like he's on the app all day hunting for mint, and he mentioned that he loves to talk to other folks because he's out hunting for mint, right? So he loves to communicate with people, and he's not able to do it just within the VV app. And I think it's true because for me personally, the way I make video is by scrolling the app. I would look for people who share their showrooms. Then I would come
Mm.
in and I would film their showroom, um, just to get that B-roll footages for my videos. And most of the time, these showrooms, like you can't really open them for whatever reason. I can only open certain showrooms that have many Batman black and whites. But if there's a showroom that has maybe more than 5 golden moments, then I can't really open it. Or if I
Wow.
find a showroom that I like and I want to come back to it to film it, then I can't do it. Like if I came up with this idea of what if I just create a new account, tag myself in the comment of that showroom post, so that when I go to my other phone, and this is just for the purpose of filming, I can just click on that notification and go to the post and film if I want to do it later. Does it make sense?
Mm.
It's like bookmarking a post, and I can't even do it on the app. There's no way to save any post. It's not there's no um
Wow.
like the communication, the low hanging fruit right now should be the communication within the VV app, because if you are on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, you are distracted by everything else, right? by other topics or content or whatever. But if for the folks who are on the VeVe app, they are there just for VeVe. And I want to see them tackle that problem first to improve the user experience of the social feed first. Show me that
Mm.
they can do it. Then I will believe them that they can execute the VV verse. That's just the way I think about it. Maybe it will surprise me somewhere down the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's all like terrific feedback. And I think one thing that I've been a little bit surprised about that I'm hoping that they do is some type of like mass kind of survey analysis. Like I know, like for instance, you can get a lot of data regarding like people's experience just by like monitoring and tracking the data of different users on a data, how long they like open the app for, what collectibles they click on, if they're using the social feed, how much percentage of them are using the social, things like that. You can get like some good points. But I was like, there's so many intelligent people in the community that like if they like crafted a really like comprehensive survey and then ask like 5 to 600 of us that are like really active users to like go through this and go through like 150 question survey and all these different things on like the user experience, on like what we want to do, all these things, like they can get so much great feedback and then give the development team a really like targeted and tiered list of things to accomplish within a time frame of like 6 months to a year. And
Yeah,
I think like very successful video game companies and pretty much everything I think is based on that really extensive user feedback. And so I'm not sure if they maybe are doing that and maybe I'm just not a part of it, but I think sometimes that would be like so key to really like moving this stuff forward, because even for me, like I'll go search for collectibles and I'm like going to like the 27th brand, and then I'm like, okay, let me look at the VeVe logo, and then let me go back now and see what partners is at, and it's like this whole, it's this whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would say that they have. I would say that they've been collecting all the data points that they would need to improve the app.
right.
Because personally, I work with data every day, so I understand that these companies already have the data. I think it's mostly so. For example, right, if someday something goes wrong and they realize that, oh, the moment you open the app until the moment where you can actually get into the market, usually it would take about 10 seconds.
Mm,
For certain people in a certain group, it certainly takes them a minute. So there is something wrong there, or like they can keep track of how much time people spend on creating a post. Maybe if people are spending too much time creating a post, there should be something that they can do to streamline that process.
mm,
So I bet you, like I work in data, so I work with data on a daily basis. They have all the data available, safe in their database somewhere. It's just allocating resource, because resource is money, time, and like people to
yeah,
actually do it. Because let's just say that they have 50 people in the economy company, and they are working on certain things. If you allocate like 10 people to improve the app or improve one specific function of the app for 2 months, think about how much money you are paying for each of those members. Then times that by the number of hours that they are spending on those 2 months, and that's how much money you have to pay to improve that one functionality alone. For example, if you want to improve the social feed on the app, and Dan knows that if he were to employ 5 people to spend 2 months on a social feed, and each of those 5 people will make, I don't know, like $5,000 a month. That times five is 25,000, right? Times
mm,
2 months, that will be $50,000 allocating to upgrading the social feed, you know, or he can
right.
spend that $50,000 and the effort and the time and the human resources on other things. So it's just about priorities, like last year when Marvel told David that, hey, we have a supply chain issue. We cannot ship our physical comics to Asia and Europe because I believe most of the comics are printed in the US and they needed to deal with the supply chain issue to ship these physical comics elsewhere. So they told David, hey, and this is David's story that he told in one of the AMAs. They wanted him to start pushing out the digital comic books on VeVe. So
Mhm.
he had to put everything aside. Maybe they were actually working on the VeVeverse back then, but Marvel told him, "Hey, we want to bring out these comics because this is the only way for us to get our comics to the European audience
Wow.
or the Asian audience. So can you do
Wow.
that for us?" And when Marvel say that to David, obviously he has to put everything aside and focus on getting the comic books out.
Mm.
So it's just about what do you prioritize within your backlog.
Exactly. There's 100 things to do. You can only do seven of them. How are you going to do it? And
Yeah,
that's I love the way that you broke that down. And it's also nice to know that you also think that there's enough data there to like make these informed decisions and set these priorities. And in your opinion, like you really think that like improving the app experience and improving the design would be the priority before moving forward and tackling bigger things like the VV verse and MCP and OUP or like, and I imagine there's no perfect recipe, but I
yeah,
agree that like, you almost want to like kind of tick the checkbox and say, okay, the app's perfect. Now let's go to the next thing. Maybe not perfect, but 80%,
yeah.
Um, because I agree, there's just a lot of things, and something that you said as well with that struck with me was the MCP. You're like, we only have pretty much like two superheroes left. maybe there's a lot still, but like in terms of the big ones, like Hulk, Wolverine, and then when MCP comes out, people are like, I've got a lot of my whale friends that are like, what's going to be left for me in MCP? And I'm like, well, we have other verticals. There's going to be sports. There's
Mhm.
going to be all these other things. But for a lot of them, like these FAs have been, inserted already onto the app. So, what's your thinking around that? Like, do you think, because I think I have this conversation with Foster about MCP, and I was saying, that it could just like really cater to the whales. But then he said, well, no, it should appeal to everybody because everybody could be uplifted. But I just wonder sometimes, like, why is there a hesitation in starting it? Maybe there's something that I'm not thinking of.
I actually don't know too much about the Master Collector program, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'm not the guy who is qualified enough to answer that question. For me, when I looked at the MCP article a while back, the biggest benefit for me back then that I thought I would get from collecting those points is to have a higher chance of getting drops, because back then we were not able to get drops, right? But then nowadays, a lot of these drops are not sold out. And I realized that I don't need to go for drops that much anymore. I just want to focus on certain things that I have decided to go for on the market, like the FAs again. So
Right.
I don't focus too much on MCP.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and that makes sense. And I think that's why for me still when I'm seeing like some of these things like this Miles Morales that just dropped with like such few additions and the fact that it was like FA, I'm like this to me seems like a pretty big deal. And I'm like also hoping secretly that because of the situation that we're in that VV continues these low edition numbers so that we can have more opportunity. Like I hope they drop Wolverine with 250 editions, and do the same thing
Yeah.
for the Hulk so that we can like capitalize because even if you get like the ultra rare of 1,000, let's just say, you're still like in the future going to be one of 1,000 holders that have this significant of a collectible, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's exciting. Like if you're convicted and if you believe, like it's a good time right now. But for most people, it's not.
I hope that they actually save it for a few years down the line, simply because like most of us know these superheroes, so they can be a good marketing campaign in the future to get people in to VeVe.
Mm,
Because right now, if you think about it, we're in a VeVe bear market, but most importantly, we're in a recession. So people have to get out of their survival mindset. And I am the same way. Like I have to get out of this recession first, and take care of my um, uh, emergency fund or my saving, and get rid of the debts and stuff like that, because inflation is high, interest rate is high, We people have to get out of the survival mode first before they can think about investing again.
Mm,
And it would even take longer for people to think about these speculative investments like the crypto and the NFT. So we have a lot of time from now until we can get past this bear market, this global bear market. I think they should save those FAs for next year, 2023 or even 2024 even. Back
mm.
then when people have gone out of have gone past this recession and they are in a more comfortable mindset to start investing again, that will be a perfect marketing content like Wolverine or Hulk to get people to on board with VeVe. Because if you were to drop them, those two guys next week, and then 2 years from now in 2024, you come out with this, I don't know, like some random
I
Marvel
hear you.
superhero, yeah, John Smith or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. We have John Smith, and people look at it, and it's just a random dude that they don't even know
Mm.
about. So they're not gonna join the app because there's nothing there for them.
Shit. You're coming in with some big points today. Yes, you're right. That is really interesting because as much as we're all thinking it's such a benefit now to get all these crazy IP in this bear market, like what is going to be the thing that will like mass propel people in that time, right? That will get people
Hmm.
onto the app. And maybe it's fucking Pokemon, right? Because if they give us Wolverine, give us all these other things, and then drop Pokemon in 2024, and then hopefully they all get their Pokemons, and then they recycle all that money back into the app and get all the other things too. But I agree. I think that's a really brilliant point because if you kind of play your best hand now when there's not that much money on the table,
Hmm.
right? Then you're going to be playing like your two and threes if we're like using poker as a metaphor when
Yeah.
there's like millions of dollars on the table and now you got you don't have any more good cards to play, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think there's got to be a huge catalyst that they should hold on to for these pinnacle times where it could really move the markets, because I think that's what my friends and I keep saying as well, is that like VeVe's whole thing works on mass adoption. Like that's how you get the big money. That's how you get like the 50 million users that David's thought theorized before.
Hmm.
It's you need to have that to make this work, right?
And I think this is the secret behind VeVe. I believe that every year there will be a few opportunities that you can take advantage of to make money. So last year, right, 2021, if you join early enough, and to be honest, I was so stupid, I didn't take advantage even when I joined back in February 2021. So I am the dumb one. That's why I'm doing all these interviews to learn from people. But if you were to join in Q1, quarter one, 2021, you could make money by stacking up the early Batman Black and White, right? If you join in Q2, there will be certain collectibles that came out during that period of time that you can buy and make money.
Mm,
If you haven't heard of VeVe until August last year, and then you come to VeVe and you get lucky with the Secret Rare Spider-Man or any Spider-Man, you can make money. And okay, if you miss out on VeVe and you join the app in Q4 2021, which is when they released the Golden Moment, you can be lucky enough to land one of the golden moments, any of the golden moments, and make money. So, and it's the same thing this year. If you miss all of those opportunities and you join VeVe in the first half of 2022, if you were lucky enough, you can land Darth Vader and make money. If you were to join VeVe after Darth Vader and you were lucky enough, you can get AF-15 or My Morales. So I guess what David and Dan and Alfred were trying to do is like they were trying to space out these drops so that whenever you join VeVe, you still have the opportunity to make money to get ahead. Because what they don't want to do is to have these millions of fans coming in and see all these listings that is just like sky high and get frustrated because people invest if they see opportunities. If there's no opportunities, then what is the point of investing, right? So
Right.
I think that every quarter or every few months, I would say every quarter to be more precise, there will be one or two opportunity that can benefit the OGs and the new users. So it's all about identifying those opportunities that can help you to get ahead.
Wow. I love that. And I think that's such a good point as well, because that's the whole reason that I became so interested in it, because I was like, oh my God, I bought this. It's already 3x. It could even
Mhm.
go higher. And then now I'm excited. Now I'm like, I want to think about this more because, like you said, as much as like you're collecting, like, let's be real, like, as much as you collect, like, even when I collect this stuff, if something does a 2x, 3x, I'm selling it. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, that's just how I think that, like, a lot of collectors do that. They cycle what they have. They like to get
Mhm.
new things, get rid of the old stuff. And so I think that's really wise, what you said there. And I feel like that's also why people are a little more deterred now, because there's fewer money making opportunities on the app. Like, maybe you get lucky, you got that VeVe Gold logo, or you got the Miles Morales. But other than
Mhm.
that, recently at least, other than AF-15 and Darth Vader, like, there's not a whole lot. Like, it's not like before when you would go and you'd snipe a low mint, you'd resell that low mint right away and make like 1,000 in your pocket, right? Like, that was November to January. Like, that stuff was easy. You literally just look for an opportunity and relist it for almost twice the price. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I would say I do agree with you that there are less opportunities nowadays,
yeah,
and I would want to clarify it a little bit further, which is there are less opportunities to make money short term, but there are many more opportunities to make money long term.
right.
Uh, so if you think about Todd Batman back in January, it went up to 14,000, right? Right now, Todd Batman has a floor at 1,000.
Mm,
So those who could not afford Todd a few months ago have that opportunity to buy him now. And I'm not trying to pump anything. I'm just saying that
yeah.
if you do your research, if you understand the potential of certain collectibles, I think that many of them are at a, and I'm not going to tell which one. I'm just going to say many of them are at a reasonable price point that, if you really believe in it, can potentially, these collectibles should have that potential to appreciate a lot in the future.
Mm,
So there's less opportunities to make money with drops because, again, back then, we had the bots and the dirty gems and the FOMO. So if you land a drop, that's instant profit. So nowadays, if you land a drop, then you're probably gonna lose money, right? But there are opportunities not on the drops, but on the market.
right.
That's what I think it is.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think, like, a really good point that you make is, like, kind of like around Todd, like seeing it go from $14,000 to 1,000. And we just also got confirmation that on Immutable, that like the token ID number one is Todd. So you remember there was that whole
Oh wow.
debate. Yeah, there was a debate whether or not, like, they maybe arbitrarily assigned Todd as the FA, even though it's still part of that first series, but it is, at least as far as IMX is concerned. I'm not sure what the implications of GoChain will be, but it has been confirmed that it is number one on the blockchain. And I think VeVe owns that first one, but nonetheless, that's exciting. And here's something that I learned that I actually wanted to share with you and see if you agree. Um, is that when we first joined, right? Because there wasn't a mass amount of users, a lot of the things that were like prized in VeVe were the scarce items, because there was fewer of them and fewer people could have them. And the people that like didn't care about that and started just getting like the high edition run FA popular stuff, like Supermans, when they were $70, stacking up Supermans, and then their high was like 5 to 9K. Those people made lots and lots of money, right? And now we're kind of back into this bear market again, where low mints don't matter as much. Because why? Because there's fewer people that want to buy them. And there's so many to go around that there's not enough volume and density and concentration like there was when there was like a partner statue. Remember when, like, in November or December, like, partners was so huge and hyped that like people would literally trade at 300 mint partners and then like literally spend an extra 2,000 just to get 100 mint partners, right? They'd go like a 200 mint variation and spend that extra money. And now it's like pretty much people just care about sub 100s. And now we're back to this scarcity thing, right? And what I think might happen is if we do get to the place we think we could be going, those higher edition popular items like Boba Fett, even Darth Vader, Todd, etc., that are all like really critically important may skyrocket again, just like what we saw previously. Maybe not to the same all-time highs, but I just was curious, like, what do you think? Like right now, like I like the golden rule for me is scarcity and popularity. But do you agree with that? And do you kind of see the same trend?
Yeah. So your question is, will people value popularity over scarcity, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was a
Yeah.
long-winded way of asking you that, but
Yeah.
yes.
I think so. Yes, 100%. Because in my last FA video, I was analyzing the number of listings on the market and guess the number of guess the percentage of a common Spider-Man on the market right now.
10%.
10%,
Yeah.
0.2%.
Wow.
So there were 30. I'm talking about the common variant. Okay, there
Yeah,
were
which is how many of those are there? 30 something?
32,000.
32,000. Yeah.
32,000. And last time I checked, I think there was only like 78 of them listed on the market.
Hmm.
If you do the math, it's 0.2, 0.3%.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I think, let me pull up my notes here. That's why I wanted to highlight it because it's okay. Todd Batman, 1%. Okay. There were 7,500 minted, obviously. Right now, there are about 60 to 70 listed on the market, so 1%.
Mhm.
Superman, 1.2%. Common Spider Man, 0.2%. Darth Vader, 2.3%. R2D2, 1.5%. The Marvel
Wow.
comic books number one, 0.4%. AF-15, 3%.
Mhm.
So out of every 100 of these common relatively high mint run collectibles, there are about three, or most of the time, less than three listed on the market.
Damn.
So,
Do you think
yeah,
it's because all the bot accounts, like 50% of the bot accounts got shut down?
no,
I'm just
I
joking.
would say like people stacking, like Silicon
Yeah.
Secure, he has like over 100 common Spider-Man, right?
Right.
Somebody, I think Omi Burn Daily just did a video on dr.profit's wallet, and he has quite a bit too, the most out of everybody. And I interview Grubber B OG,
Yes.
which I'm grateful because I saw your video because that's how I learned about him. So I saw him on your video. I
No
reached out to
way.
him and like
I
we
love that guy.
like yeah, we talk every day now. The guy behind the biggest private transaction ever on the app, he has over 100 Spider-Man comments. So those two
Wow.
guys alone has, I don't know, like three times the supply available on the market already. And I think David mentioned at one point that he saw somebody holding over 1,000 Spider-Man comments.
Right.
So it's already there. I mean, like scarcity is one thing, but right now people care more about popularity because
Right.
scarcity, a lot of these low mint items, they are not reachable by people like me personally because I don't
Yeah.
have that capital, right? So I'm not supporting it. I'm not talking about it. But if
Right.
people were to buy certain things like Todd or Vader or R2 or AF-15, which is scare but not as scare as Adani,
Yeah.
then there will be at least a few thousand people talking about it. When a few thousand people are talking about it, that is a much bigger voice than just 20 people who are Donnie owners.
Exactly. I said the exact same thing as you. I was saying that around Todd because I was like, what's that perfect amount? Like, and maybe there's hasn't been any like evidence as to what like maybe we should ask an anthropologist or a sociologist, like what's the perfect amount of people to drive an NFT project forward, but also ensuring that it still has value, that it's not too many additions, right? But like I think that's a brilliant point you bring up, because like when I look at some of these one of ones that are being dropped now, there's no hype about it. Nobody really discusses it because nobody can really get it other than the whales. Like maybe there's a competition between like 25 guys and none
Hmm.
of them have a YouTube channel, and I'm not going to cover it because what's that value to my users that can't get it into me, right? I don't
Yeah,
even
you
want to
got it
think
right
about
there.
it,
Hmm.
right? But like somewhere like, so here's the other thing that's interesting, because then and here's the qualitative factors that a lot of people don't talk about is like when you also have a big item like Secret Rare Spider-Man, a Partners, a Todd, R2, Marvel 1 SR, AF15 SR, Fantastic Four 1, all these different things that are like pretty solid items, you actually end up running into these whales. Like you, if you're part of the groups, or you like you start communicating with people that may be above your pay grade, and you
Hmm.
start learning from them, and people don't put a value on that. And the second thing they don't put a value on is like social capital. Like what happens if Eminem does join into VeVe one day in the VeVe verse and wants the coolest shit? Well, he's not going to be buying as much as we think, as much as Common Spider-Man might have the best ROI. You're not going to see Eminem rocking like a 10,000 minted Spider-Man. He's going to have like the number 41 AF15 secret rare. You know what I'm trying to say?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's the part to me that I also want people to think is like, if this thing does take off to the way that we think, then it's really going to be that really cool, popular, scarce stuff as well that will blow up, you know?
Yeah, I see the same thing with my interview guests. So I noticed
Mm-hmm.
that, so there are two guys in particular that I want to mention, Mr. V, which is my most recent guest. So these two guys, I want to mention them simply because they are specimen hunters.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, specimen collector, which sounds better. So these guys spend at least 8 hours a day on the app hunting for these mint, and these collectibles are just any ordinary collectibles that you would normally see on the app, and but they want that special mint. So the first guy I talked to a while back was Saxon Hawaii. He's an Hawaiian actor, super nice guy.
Wow.
Um, he's a specimen hunter. He's an actor, and he's been in Hawaii Five O and
Holy shit.
some other series. Yes, it's funny because I saw him on the app simply because he owns two Donnies. Okay, so I saw his collection, so I came into his account because I saw him. Wow, this guy Okisex, that's his username on VV. He has two Donnies. Like, how do you even have two Donnies? And also, I want to tell you a quick story later. Have you ever
Yeah,
heard of somebody who owns the whole Donnie supply at one point?
I did. The guy from China, I think it was.
No,
Like
it
you're
was
talking about.
Blockchain.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know of her. I know of her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she owned at one point in time when Donnie first came out. She owned every single one of the Donnie that did not belong to the team.
I didn't
But
know that.
yeah, think about that. Okay, but that is just a fun story for your viewers. But I
Yeah.
saw Saxon having two Donnies, and I went to his account, and long story short, he has the ordinary collectibles that the majority of us have, but he has the super special year mint. For example, he
Mm.
has the number 41 Captain America Marvel Mighties. Captain
Mm.
America came out in 1941, so 41 is very special. And also 41 is the first ever Captain America in on the blockchain.
Wow.
And he has the Adventure logo, FA year, Goofy FA year, a bunch of
Damn.
them. So I do agree with your point. Sorry, it was a long story,
Not at
but I
all.
think these whales when they come in, um, they want something that will help them to stand out, that will make their collections pop. And I think they will go for something that everybody can have, but just a little bit better. You know, like
Right.
anybody can have a Captain America Marvel Mighty. Like you can go out and buy him for like 20 gems. But who
Man,
has the 41, the mint 41 Captain America Marvel Mighty, right?
that's insane. I hear
Yeah.
you. And like that, and those are very significant, right? And so that is almost like a one of like, so that's almost playing the best of both worlds because you have a one of one piece that nobody else can
Mhm.
have, but you also have mass community that can get behind it and is like wants to be a part of it. So you're playing like both worlds in a sense. And I think it's the same thing with like Walt, like 1901 Walt. And I think like that's why Dr. Profit has 399 partner
Yeah.
statues, one away from 400. I think he just does it to fuck with people's minds, just get one
Yeah.
more. And he's like, no, we'll keep it at 399 for now. But yeah, like I hear what you're saying, right? And for me, where I'm gonna specialize is like I'll get like my sub 100 Daredevil, or I'll get like a sub 100. So I'm not the best guy, but I'm up there. You know what I mean? And that's where it's like everyone can play this game, and it's like I don't know, it's just very interesting right now because there's a lot of these quiet whales, man, that I talk to all the time, and like every day they're sending me like pictures of things they just bought, and it's just like it's ridiculous. It's like they sometimes will buy like a sub 40 NFT that is like 10 grand that's just been sitting there because nobody wants it. And they're like, oh, I just, I didn't want to see this sit there for another week. So I bought it, and they'll just like show me a picture. Or, sometimes they'll get like the matching mint sets of like Miles Morales, sub 100 matching mint sets. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
yeah, like just like things like that. And like nobody knows who these guys are, including myself, because they like,
Yeah.
other than their username, which I'm not going to say, but a lot of them want to keep private, right? And they just enjoy this. And for them, I think it's like I don't know if they're millionaires or if they made their money in crypto or what the heck their deal is. But like you said, they're really into it still, and they're silently stacking in the background, right? So
Yeah.
if they're convicted and they're successful and they're doing all that stuff, I mean, unless they're just trying to throw money away, it should be a good inkling as to what's to come. You know what I mean?
So I think there is one whale. Well, I do get those messages, but
Yeah.
just from one whale in my Twitter DM, and he's also private. And I think he probably sent the same photos to you as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we cannot say his name, but I saw this guy sending me photos every single day of him buying these incredible mint, like FA year or like beautiful mint. And he
Yeah.
sends me these photos every single day. And I know that these collectibles are not cheap. So it's crazy to see people's dedication and passion for these collectibles. And
Right.
and if you allow me, I would like to tell a story or one thing that I realized from talking to VeVe Wells.
Share it, baby. Of course.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
so
this is awesome. Of course I want to hear that.
yeah, so I've talked to up to this point. You are like my tenth person that I've talked to in the format of interviews, right? So I've got data from 10 people, whales or VV experts, specimen collectors, comic book guys like Sean, everybody. What I've realized is that, and especially for the whales, they are. I am 10 times more bullish on VV after I talk to them, and this is why. These whales either own a business or operate a business. So what they understand is that when you are running a business, there's gonna be up and downs. There's gonna be challenges. So the folks I talk to, they are in hospitality, real estate, entertainment, um, education, different industries. So they understand that when they operate or they run a business, sometimes things will happen that will slow them down or that will cost them a lot of time or money. So challenge happen all the time. So they can really understand the problems that Dan and David and the Ecomi team is going through. So I know that many of us think, oh, if the team is late to deliver something, that means the team is bad, right? But no, like if you are operating a real business, sometimes things happen that will slow you down. So they really understand the struggles that a team is going through, and they get it. Like some whales who are in the hospitality or entertainment industry, if COVID happened, right? So that basically destroyed their business. So they had to deal with that and pivot. And they understand that Dan and David are dealing with the same thing, like the dirty gems situation, the bots, the
Mm,
hacks. So when we think about VeVe, if they are late to something, we think that they are bad. But no, these are really good entrepreneurs. Sometimes they just have problems. And what I realized that these whales invest in a team and the partners. So those two factors are very important for them as well. You can tell me 100 ideas, but if you cannot execute any of them, then I don't care if you're a genius. It doesn't matter to me.
right.
They know that Alfred and David and Dan, especially Alfred and David, have had decades of experience. They have launched successful businesses. So even if they face these challenges, they can still get through it because they are proven businessmen who can get things done, especially Alfred. And so they know that these guys can actually make things happen. So that's why they invested so much money. And what some other things like the partners right now, if you were to, because I work in tech, if you were to have your new technology company providing software as a service, for example, it is huge for you to have a good partner or a client. Like if Zoom were to put on a website, hey, our customers include Uber, Lyft, the Canadian government, when other companies look for a communication solution and they see Zoom and Zoom has the government of Canada, because you're from Canada, right?
Yeah.
As the customer, they will want to, like, that shows a lot of credibility and trust there. And VeVe has Disney, Marvel, DC Comics, Universal,
Right.
like all the huge brands, right? So they have a really good team, a team that can execute and get things done. They have really good partners. And another things that these whales who run and operate business again can understand that if you have that pioneer advantage, it helps a lot. That's why other companies that I've seen popping up after VeVe, like Recur or HRO or other NFT projects, they are not doing well simply because they are not the pioneer in the premium digital collectible space.
Right.
VeVe was first, and David has been negotiating with these companies since 2018 before people knew what an NFT was. So VeVe was able to secure the huge IPs like Disney and again list of those brands. So these whales make me bullish because they analyze those things for me, and um they show me that VeVe, even though there will always be challenges, VeVe has most of the elements to succeed. So that's why I became even more bullish after I talked to them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. I love the way that you break down information, man. I like I'm totally there with you. And the other thing that's so incredible to me is that, we may be thinking that these edition sizes are quite high in the context
Mhm.
of this current market. But like when you said earlier, you think about the mass popularity, like hundreds of millions of fans, like super or Spider-Man being the most popular superhero in 58 countries out of 200 and whatever it is. It's like 1/4 of the world that thinks that not only do they know superheroes, they think that Spider-Man is the most. You know what I'm trying to say? And here we have 1,000 editions of the first appearance and the secret rare, and only 32,000 for the common. Like in the context of now, it's like in surplus, it seems like. But in the context of the world, it's very few. And I think that's the interesting thing to me as well, is like, what if we do get institutional adaptation as well, or hedge funds, or like different you know asset companies, like digital asset companies, coming in and saying we want to buy a portion of this, right? And that's the thing that gets me excited as well. It's like I always wonder, like, are these whales waiting to sell these things off to a massive company and then get royalty? Like, I don't know where it goes, right? I mean, obviously I'm stretching here, but I put it this way, I almost feel like sometimes they know something that we don't, because they're so convicted. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm
I'll
like,
tell you
okay,
what.
yeah,
I'll tell you what. Okay, what I've realized is that they know certain things, but they don't know everything.
right.
And that's why in every single interview, I always ask them, can you tell me at least three mistakes that you have made? Because for a lot of people, these whales are like mythical creatures, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah,
They have to have done something right to get to where they are. But if people watch my interview, every single one of them, I always ask, what have you fucked up? Like you have had to mess up somewhere along the way because everybody makes mistakes, right? So
right.
they know certain things, but they have fumbled a lot to learn those things too. So they are not perfect. Um, and I think people should learn from those mistakes because if you think about it, if we were to go through our VV journey by ourselves, right, and you make one mistake or multiple mistakes, you are learning from one very biased perspective, which is
Mm.
you. And most of the time, because it is a biased perspective, you don't really learn anything from it. You're probably going to make the same mistake again. Or there are hundreds of other mistakes out there that you will be making 100%, okay? Because you're going through a journey by yourself. But if you learn from the mistakes of these guys, Grub, Dylan, Danny Boy, Layak, these
Mm.
guys have put hundreds of thousands of dollars into the
Yeah,
app. The mistakes that they made are 10 times bigger than your mistakes.
right.
So if you spend a few hours watching like your content, your uh, interviews, my interviews too, I think people can exponentially increase the number of lessons and experience and insight that they can get, that they would not be able to get by themselves. What's better than learning from a guy who had made who put in hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's so rare. Like I don't have any friend that have that much money or make that kind of
Mm-hmm.
mistake. So again, they are not perfect, but they are super committed and they learn from their mistakes. And I think we can learn from their mistakes as well, because if I know that, oh, if I watch your video or my video and I can see that, oh, this guy sold this collectible for too low, then I can take note, right? Okay, he sold it too low. I'm not going to do the same thing.
Mm.
Or this guy bought 50 of these same collectibles and he bought it during February when it was too high. Then somebody can take note. Oh, I'm going to be patient. If
Right.
so, I learned that Steven, the Tot father, he sold Omi at 0.008, which was like really high back then. That
Mm.
was a great decision. And he put it to collectibles before the January bull run. That was a fantastic decision. I'm going
Yeah.
to take note and carefully plan my moves next time. So these are the things that people can learn that are super valuable that they will never, ever be able to learn by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant point. And all that information is like freely available, if you're willing to put the time in and to learn, and even like tracking these people on the app. Like I think, to kind of add on to what you were saying as well. I remember Danny Boy Lyak, he was selling things in January like crazy. I don't know if you remember that. Like every collectible you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
check out, he'd be like 4 or 5 listings. And I was like, why is he selling everything like this? And he obviously just said, I remember I messaged him and he just said to me, well, there's only few good selling periods. Like you're not always going to have a good selling period. So he's like, I'm just selling a bunch off. And I remember he got to like $1 million gem balance and he still had like 2,000 plus collectibles and 1,000 plus
Wow.
comics. And I remember he messaged Alex publicly on Twitter. He's like, am I the first one with $1 million gem balance? And Alex just said, like, maybe. Like, I forget exactly what he said, but I was just like, wow, like, this, and this guy is, and so my point to that is like, if he's selling, that should be some good insight as to what you should be doing too. And when he's buying, maybe that's a good time to buy. And I think, just funny, right? And some of us made,
Can I
yeah,
interrupt real quick? All
please.
right. So you mentioned that he sold. So Danny Bolak is a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think people should know that he is a flipper simply because he's paying, like he buy gems directly from the app in Australia. So he has
Mm,
to pay a transaction fee that is way higher than we pay in North America. So he has to flip to make that money back. So that's one thing. And he's a very smart guy. He sold during January, which is a great decision, right? But he also bought Secret Rare Spider-Man at I can't remember the number. It was a ridiculous amount of
oh,
money of gems. So he did something right, but he
yeah,
also messed up a little bit
yeah,
along the way as well. So these guys are not perfect, but I have
yeah,
to add that I I learned a tremendous amount from Danny Boy Layak, because one time I saw him listing a Wonder Woman for like 200 gems at floor back a few months ago, and I was like, "What are you doing? You have like 7,000 collectibles. Oh well, a few thousand. He's now at 7,000, but back then maybe like 3, 4,000. You have 4,000 collectibles. Why are you flipping these
mm,
small, you know, and just random collectibles? What is your margin?" And he told me my margin is 30%. And that kind of blew my mind, because for a lot of us, we wait for our 5x, 10x, 20x profit taking opportunity,
right,
right? Because if we think, oh, we pay $50 for this, we should get at least 1,000, two
yeah,
thousand. But him having the mindset of, you know what, profit is profit. I'm gonna do that. And in hindsight, he made the right decision, because now Wonder Woman is at like 80 gems or something like that. If
mm,
if this guy, one of the biggest whales on the app, can have that ability to be real, be realistic, and take profit regardless, if it's only 30%, if this guy can take a 30% profit, then who am I to wait for my 5x, 10x opportunities that might never come? And during that time, I can utilize that profit on something else much better.
right.
But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
No, I mean that's a that's a great addition, and I think you're right. Like, because then if you just flip that 30% into another 30%, like I'll give you an example. Like I bought that secret rare Spider-Man in December for 17,900, right? And at the time, people were like, "That was so dumb," and I just had a feeling like I knew something was going on. I saw the
Mhm.
the amount of people, and then it went to 100,000, and then instead of selling it, which would have been the smarter move, I just kind of waited on it because my thing was, well, what happens if it does do a 25x? Like, what if it does go to $500,000? Or what if it does go to 250K, not knowing about the gem exploit or not knowing about these other things? And, the smarter people, like you said, will just say, like, okay, I've got to get off the train at some point. I think Sleeping Comics said that to me. He's like, everybody rides the train and you can never time it perfectly, but at some point you got to get off the train.
Yeah,
And if you're good at just being like, okay, I'm in the green, I'm off the train, and even if it continues to go up, it does suck. But it's like to time it perfectly is so difficult. Like, and I flip things. I'm obviously not to the same extent as Danny Boy, but I flip things all this time to try to
hmm,
see what I can do. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also made moves that have like put me in a position that I never thought I could have done if I didn't take those risks as well. So I think
yeah,
like that's another part of this game too, is that sometimes if you want to get the big bucks, you have to kind of take risks as well. Um, so yeah, anyways, yeah,
yeah,
this is a good conversation, man. I feel like we're really diving deep into some of these whales, and I feel like we need them all on with us right now, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
listen, guys, thanks so much for joining, my friend. That was a lot of fun. Will Goes Meta. Make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. Make sure to connect with him on Discord. Maybe you could see if the VV Army chat's let any more people in.
yeah.
Um, like I said, I've been a huge fan of this guy for a long time, and I'm really glad that we can kind of make it happen. And I think we shared a lot of insight with everybody about what we've learned, from really like experts, whales, and really knowledgeable people in the community. And I hope that this was like a really good, informative video for you. And yeah, I really look forward to having you back on soon.
Yeah, thank you, man. Like I said, I've been a huge fan of you for a long time. I really appreciate you putting out all these super valuable content and frameworks so that people can make better decisions. And yeah, I'm super honored to be here talking to my VV idol after a long time.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, I really appreciate it, and I hope you and your family, the best.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and you as well. And it's like I said, it was a lot of fun, and we'll have to do this again soon. All right.
All right, thank you, chat.
Thank you, brother.